What's the worst thing to wake up to? Someone yelling at you. It can ruin a whole day. I worked with a kid who experienced this often. He would come to school out of sorts and anxious little things would set him off at school and he would lash out. He would be punished, labeled a bad kid, sent home to this anxiety-inducing household again with parents who were angry at him. Poor kid was prepared to fight/fly most of the day. And of course with all of that going on, he was learning nothing and getting behind his class, which made him more anxious because he didn't want to look stupid. A tornado alarm. Shit is so fucking scary. Especially at 3 AM while you are in a tent and the nearest tornado shelter is a 10-minute walk through the woods in a thunderstorm. Police. I woke up to police chasing a guy through our yard. He tripped over the bikes I had leaning against the house right where my bedroom is. That's the only reason the cops got him. There was so much yelling and threats to shoot until finally the guy cooperated. That was like January 2nd. Waking up to 30+ missed calls with a brutal hangover and can't remember what you did last night, but you know it wasn't good. Panic. If it's a blackout drunk night, just waking up having not lost your phone is a win in my book. A call from work wondering where I've been all morning. That pit in your stomach when you wake up, look at your phone, and see you're hours late for work. From ready to pass back out to instant anxiety fueled adrenaline in 0.2 seconds. Your dog gagging and about to throw up in the middle of night, then hearing him eating it 15 seconds later. Sounds like the problem solved itself. Got woken up by my dad early in the morning to inform me that my mother had passed away in the room across the hall from me. Worst part was that she was only sleeping there to look after a pup that was recently born from the 2 dogs we had at the time. Otherwise my dad might have woken up and been able to do something about it. The pup ended up crying late at night before or during her heart failure that I ended up passing off as it's really not that uncommon, but it really makes me question if I could done something or not to help her before it happened. Think about it regularly. Calling work and breaking down to my post boss wasn't great either, but hey, shit day. Sorry for your loss, stay strong. Your house burning down. Had this happen once when I was in middle school. It wasn't burning down completely, but the bathroom caught fire. Had to scramble out of bed and grab the super stubborn dog and foe. Edit. A lot of people are asking. The bathroom caught fire from a malfunctioning bathroom fan. It was actually something my family pressed on the landlord to fix for a while before the fire occurred. Waking up in an ice bath with a missing kidney and blood all over the place. Don't wanna know how you thought of this one. The end of that dream, where you really need a pee and start to feel the satisfaction of warming release. Hearing a throwing up noise. Started 2020 to that sound. Cat vomited on our bed. Knew it wasn't a good omen for the year. Edit. I promise he's a sweet cat. He was just giving us a heads up. The sounds of your parents having sex. And you don't live with them anymore. One, I woke up to find my dog had diarrhea everywhere. Large puddle on the floor and also in between the side of my bed and the wall. It was completely inside the outlet. I literally had to shut off the electricity and rewire a new outlet that day. Oh shit. I was babysitting my niece one time when she was about 4. I packed her off to bed and went to watch a movie on the couch, where I promptly dozed off, only to be woken a few hours later in complete darkness, having no idea where I was, and with a tiny, clammy little demon hand grabbing at my ankle. I've never been awake faster in my life, only to be greeted by a very confused child who just wanted a story, and who no one had seen. Fit to tell me could get over the baby gate like a god and ninja. We don't tell her mother about the time Aunt Hazel almost kicked her darling daughter through a window. Mine is very similar, but also the opposite. When I was 18, I would regularly visit my sister who lives about 2 hours away. I would usually stay for the weekend, babysit my infant niece, and they could have a chance to go out. This particular time, I dozed off on the couch. I woke up in a blur around midnight and realized I didn't have the baby monitor. I went upstairs and saw the baby's door was open. I tiptoeing, and the crib is empty. I full on panic, ran around yelling, checking all the rooms and doors, all still locked. I find my phone and there's a text from my sister. Dog meds are in the window by the sink. 1:30 p.m. I finally remembered I had come that weekend to take care of their dog while they, baby included, went to Ohio. I've never been so relieved in my entire life. Dog shat on the carpet. Cat peeing on my ankles through the sheets. Bro, I feel that. Fever, sore throat, shortness of breath. Just go back to sleep. 2020 is all but a dream. Hey you're finally awake. A severe lack of oxygen. A few years back I was riding my bike home from work on a Friday night and crashed while trying to avoid some guy cutting a corner. Ambulance rocked up and took me to the hospital. Lots of scratches, scrapes, and bruises, and a broken collarbone. They kick me out after a few hours and just before I get out they give me a small pack of codeine tablets. I asked them at the time to give me tramadol instead as codeine makes me nauseous, but they refused and told me to go see my GP if I wanted something different. It being Friday night, my GP wasn't going to be open again till Monday morning. I went home and the pain was bad enough that I ended up going, fuck it, and taking the codeine over the course of the weekend. The last dose of which I took about 9 p.m. Sunday night. Monday morning rolls around and I immediately call my GP and book an appointment so I can get some tramadol. While I'm there talking to him, he warns me, make sure you wait at least 24 hours from taking the last dose of codeine before you take any tramadol as the two of them together could stop you breathing. Duly noted, says I. That night I stayed up quite late watching crap on YouTube etc. and made myself stay awake till about 3 a.m. and took some tramadol just before I went to bed so that I could get a decent night's sleep. Apparently I didn't wait long enough. I don't know what time of night it was and hence how long it took. All I remember is shooting awake and feeling like I couldn't get enough breath into my lungs. I gasped and gasped and gasped and eventually managed to start feeling human again, but it's still one of the most terrifying wake-ups I've ever had. Respiratory depression. An alarm. Not just any alarm, the iPhone alarm. My mom woke me up because my grandmother passed away. This, waking up to hear someone has died, is dying, or is deathly ill just sinks your day from the start. Edit. I'm so sorry for your losses. 3. Sunlight. I work the early morning shift and I'm already driving to work before the sun even comes up. A couple of times my phone has ended up under my pillow and I've missed my alarm, only to wake up to the sun glaring in my eyes. That sudden feeling of fucking up always sucks. Yeah, I remember those days of waking up before dawn. If I woke up to sunlight then I immediately knew I fucked up and with a jolt of energy hop out of bed. Another day. A few years ago I was awoken at probably 5 a.m. Sun was just starting to appear by the most rancid stench I have ever experienced. It was so rank that it woke me out of a sound sleep. I'm unwakeable. I will silence alarms in my sleep. I have slept through hurricanes, but this stench slapped me in the face so hard that I was up and ready to fight it at the first grasp of consciousness my body had. At first I thought it was some serious ass dog poop, but my bedroom door was still shut and it would be super weird since my dog doesn't have a history of pooping in the house. So I go on a manhunt for the source of this god-awful aroma and I absolutely cannot figure it out. Nothing on the floor, under the bed, on the bed, in the closet, in any piece of furniture etc. I open the window, partially to let in some fresh air and partially to see if it's coming from outside. Then I walk by my python's enclosure one more time and realize that it is the epicenter of this horrific nightmare fume. I couldn't see much through the barely sunlit room, so I flipped the light switch on to see the side of her enclosure covered in a dried, crusty liquid and some bits of unidentifiable chunks. Absolutely disgusted, I have no choice but to get closer and inspect this hazmat crime scene to find out what the fuck happened and see if she was still okay. She was fine, but coiled up at the opposite end of her enclosure with her head poking up at me, pleading, begging, please, please human, kill me. She had escaped the day before and had been fed the day before that. If you don't know much about caring for snakes, you have to let them rest and digest about 72 hours after eating, otherwise they can, and most likely will vomit. Do you know what snake vomit looks like? It's just a whole animal with the head half partially dissolved in acid depending on how long it was inside the snake. In this case, I looked over and saw a rat's ass from the hip bones down, organs spilled everywhere, and goo covering every inch of the enclosure on that side. She had decided to puke the rat's ass directly onto her heat rock, where some of it had been deflected everywhere, and the rest had been actively baking, while I'd been sleeping. The sight coupled with the scent made me lose it. I vomited all over the floor. I go and grab some cleaning supplies, toss her into a bin, and soak a t-shirt in perfume to tie around my mouth and nose while I attack this revolting puke apocalypse. As I've got my head in her enclosure, straining to hold my breath and trying to squint as much as possible so I don't have to see it as much, I turn to throw another wad of dirty paper towels into the bag I had opened up on the floor behind me to see my dog snacking on them. I vomited again. Overall, it took me an hour to get the enclosure clean. I had to give her a half-hour soak, but babysit her while trying not to fall asleep, so she didn't try to submerge her head in dawn. I had to brush my dog's teeth and the smell didn't leave my room for a week. Even with my windows open, 3 wall blowers and fan going 24/7. You win, hands down. Bacon cooking on a George Foreman next to your bed. Forgetting you set it there and then stepping on it hurts like crap. Waking up after having a dream where your crush tells you she/he loves you. That's a great way to ruin your week. Your clothes, bed sheets, bed stained with period blood. Or the sinking feeling that you just know as soon as you roll out of bed it'll leak everywhere. The run to the bathroom in the mornings is always my least favorite part of periods. The cops banging on your door. Username checks out. Death. 2 years ago, I woke up to my parents crying as they were informed that my grandfather had passed away. We packed in 30 minutes and took the first flight out for my grandfather's funeral. It still haunts me to this day. Your wife grinding coffee beans 12 inches away from your head. Your wife grinding your head 12 inches away from coffee beans. Artillery. Had that happen too. Especially when you don't expect it. Went on a long weekend with Whiffy to a rental and arrived in the dark. Apparently it was next to a military firing range, and at 8 AM the next morning a dozen howitzers fired rounds. Yourself as a student in underwear, in front of the entire second grade and everyone is laughing at you. And you're 23. A horse's head, the thing there is, that it's not the head, it's the fact that someone sneaked in and managed to put an 80 to 100 pound bloody mess of a head into your bed while you were sleeping, and just because. http yalto.be/41skp55xyjk. That fool must have had a bomb-ass mattress to keep him asleep through all that. To the sound of the cars, I live near a big road with loads of traffic, and it's just awful. Point at 5 AM I'm already awake because of it, and this is happening every single day. At 5 years old, opening your eyes only to see that you're on the front porch, in your mother's arms, and an ambulance pulling up into the driveway. I stared at it and passed out again a few seconds later. I woke up late the next day. Turns out I had a severe epileptic seizure. Scary shit. Every single time I see stuff like this, it just kinda humbles me to know that things could be a lot worse. I'm autistic, never had a seizure in my life. I have helped someone who was super prone to seizures while I was working at a thrift store. He even had one while I was still working there. He is alright now to my knowledge. Must be tough to live with something like that. Open bracket. The wrong side of the bed. A full bladder, then I'll have to get up to use the bathroom instead of going back to sleep. Fucking hate that. Happened to me this morning and I couldn't go back to sleep. I had a nightmare where I was covered in ants. I woke up and was relieved that it was just a dream. Then I realized I was actually covered in ants. Oh man, I had forgotten about the time that I woke up covered in ants and you just reminded me. I can attest to this. It is a freaking nightmare to be woken up this way. Totally traumatized 8-year-old me. Waking up dead. Sorry, boss, I can't commit today. I'm dead. Well, that's not an excuse. See you at 9. The hard surface of a carriage seat, rope binding your hand, and an odd exclaiming that you're finally awake. Damn it, Todd Harwood, not this shit again. A doctor. A gun pointed inches away from your face. Story time. When I was around 21 I had a night of binge drinking with my roommate, and we drank until 6 or 7 in the morning. The house next to us being upset about us being up all night called the cops on us around 7 to say they heard gunfire. Now we weren't blasting the music too loud, because when I went into the backyard throughout the night to let the dogs pee or go join them for a pee in the yard, what do you expect? I was drunk. The music was not notable more than a foot away from the house. At few times my roommate went out back to smoke a cigarette, and I joined him to continue our conversation while he smoked, and the music wasn't audible then either. Anyway, I finally got the great idea. I wanted to wash my car, so I slowly drove it down the driveway, which lead to the side of the house, and opened the gate to the backyard, so I could use the hose in the backyard. This seemed easier to me than finding a hose out the garage and connecting it to a spigot in the front of the house and maybe waking up the neighbors by washing my car at 7 in the morning. Went inside to grab a bucket, soap, and sat down for another beer and passed out on the couch. Next thing I know I feel my roommate tapping me on the nose. I'm in that half state of drunk and asleep and can't be bothered, so tell him to fuck off, cause I'm sleepy. Again I get tapped on the nose and shaken a little, being told to wake up. Again I say fuck off, let me sleep. This time I hear wake up and step outside. Now, as I slowly open my eyes, blurry and they begin to adjust, I see a handgun inches from my nose. Everything else is still blurry as the handgun comes to focus. I think, WTF? Why is my roommate pointing a gun at me? As I focused more I see past the gun and notice a uniform, and a badge comes into focus. Again now I hear wake the fuck up and get the fuck outside. It was this cop who was trying to wake me as my roommate was sitting in our backyard handcuffed, and 8 policemen were in my house all drawn guns. I slowly get up and say okay as they roughly take me to the back and handcuff me as well and sit me on the concrete in the backyard. They continue to clear the house. Dogs wandering the backyard staying near me, and all the cops around us outside kept asking where are the guns. My roommate did have a gun cabinet with a few shotguns and rifles, so he tells them in his room he had a cabinet. The cops then kept yelling about the handgun. Where is the handgun? We didn't have one. Now mind you I'm drunk, half asleep, and still confused, so I'm asking how they get in the house. Why are they here? I'm told to sit still and keep quiet. Once the house is cleared and they check us for guns, I asked them if I could put my dogs inside so they wouldn't run out the backyard because they had our side gate wide open. They were nice enough to let me tell the dogs go to the other side of the yard where I had kennels for them, and then locked them in there and started asking us about the handguns again, saying a neighbor report hearing lots of gunfire, probably from a handgun coming from our house. I said no, we've been drinking, but no handguns here. They kept up the questions asking why I had my car in the backyard. If I wasn't trying to hit something, why is the car in the backyard? I say I was going to wash it, which they looked at me like, why not just wash it in the front like normal people? You're trying to hide something. Where are the keys to the car so we can search it? At this point I just wanted them out and knew I had no guns in the car, so I told them. They check the car, the rest of the house again get tossed around but no handguns. Just the guns in the cabinet which were unloaded. They break out some powder to put on the guns to see if any had been fired recently. They hadn't. So they give us a warning about firing weapons in a residential neighborhood, to which I say, are they sure it was us? May have been another house. They say no chance. Your next door neighbor here said he clearly heard it coming from this house. Okay, but we don't have handguns. Only rifles and shotguns which make completely different sounds, and none have been fired in a while. They finally leave, and in the drunk state I have to clean up the house they turned and tossed around. Asked my roommate what happened, if he had shot of any of them while I was passed out. He said once I passed out he got on the kitchen phone to call for pizza delivery and kept getting pissed none were open. Yet when he noticed someone walking in our backyard, he opened the door to ask who the hell was in our backyard and was greeted by the SWAT team that promptly slammed him on the ground and began to run through the house. And that's when I was woken up by one of them with his gun pointed inches away from my face. TL. Doctor, neighbor called the cops on us firing guns, so SWAT team came out and woke me up with his handgun a few inches from my nose.